going to do a trip report now on 25I-NBOME, well, trip experience report. So, firstly I'll talk about low dose experiences, and then I'll talk about high dose experiences. So, for me with 25I-NBOME, I found that low dose experiences such as 1.25 milligram or below doses didn't really do much to me. I mean, you can tell that it's somewhat hallucinogenic, you can tell that it's a stimulant for sure, but I didn't find it that impressive. It kind of I don't know, it made me feel some odd thoughts like you'd expect. It gave me quite a bit of energy for a hallucinogenic. I think it's partly stimulant as well though. But it didn't really make me trip as such. You know, it made things feel a little visually strange. I felt a little physically, I don't know, more aware. I felt more stimulated than actually, I don't know, different or odd like you'd expect with a hallucinogen. I mean, I didn't really get major visuals at a lower dose. At a lower dose I didn't really get very good odd thoughts. I had thoughts that, like the same thought over and over again. I'd be stuck in a loop of thoughts for an hour or two. And to me, that just wasn't fun. I wasn't really gaining anything out of it. It wasn't like I was learning anything new. I was just going over old thoughts over and over again. It was fun in the fact that I got to experience a novel compound, but it wasn't really that good. It's not something that I'd say is a recommended hallucinogenic of mine at a lower dose. As well, I did notice some slight heart weirdness. It didn't feel like I was dying, it just felt like my heart was going faster or slightly weaker than normal. It felt kind of out of sync, and I didn't like that. It was a little odd and disturbing, but at a lower dose it wasn't really enough to get me carried away. I've done the lower doses a few times, and I find that it's nice because it gives you a little bit of energy. It kind of spaces you out, but it doesn't really make you trip. It just makes things a little bit different. But you just feel different. You don't feel like you're really tripping as such. I mean, yeah, there's not really that much of a visual impact to it at a dose of say 1.25 milligrams for someone such as myself. Now, I've had a couple of higher dose experiences, and I've got to say the higher dose experiences were quite interesting, but for me they weren't personally worth it or that interesting. There was nothing really noteworthy about them. So for example, I had a high dose experience with a friend of mine who's a graffiti artist in Australia. Now, he's into his hip hop, he reckons himself a gangster, this, that and the other. Good for him. We took, I think it was 2.5 milligrams each. Yeah, because they're 1.25 milligram tabs. Now, when that first hit in, it hits in like the lower dose tab. And because we're at his house and he's all gangster rap and murder, this kind of thing, it made the atmosphere intense. The setting made it slightly more intense. It was unnerving, but it was interesting because it was unnerving, because it was a different experience. Him and his friends were talking about, you know, like different serial killers and gang warfare and events that happen in that part of their area and blah blah blah. He was talking about some of his meth deals he's done. I was telling him about people who have sold DMT and past experiences I've had of people selling drugs efficiently and such. You know, we exchanged this kind of information, and it was interesting. The scary hip hop and such, it was all made a lot more interesting. It gave us more energy when the lower wave hit us. We went for a drive. Now, I may or may not have been driving. I can't really say whether I was. It's irresponsible to drive on 25I-NBOME. And it started to hit me harder. I started to get not really, well, I guess a visual change, but nothing. It didn't enhance colours. It didn't make things particularly go through each other. It just felt like things were warping a little bit. I could sort of see them warp a little and sort of fizzle, colours fizzle on top of stuff. Not majorly, just a little bit. Enough to make it interesting though, enough to make the visuals interesting. I felt a lot of physical stimulation, quite a nice physical tingle around my body. And yeah, that was a good experience. We got to our destination, which was under a railway bridge, and we started spray painting together. Now, I've got to say, having a high dose of 25I-NBOME really did spruce things up with the spray painting. Because things were warping and tingling, we all did really, really weird designs. And it gives you all these weird looping thoughts, so you're stuck on one concept for about an hour or two. You can't really help it. Now, those weird thoughts did get interesting on larger doses, but again, it wasn't really any good because it's the same thought looping over and over and over for 2 or 3 hours at a day. You just don't want that. It was good for when we were spray painting because we just went insane with the spray paint. I mean, we did some beautiful stuff, we did some horrifying weird shit, but it made us more creative, it made us more energetic as well. So, we were in a weird space, we had more energy, we were just better in general at it, and we enjoyed it more. But we all commented on how it kind of made our throats feel tight at a higher dose. We all had this weird, horrible feeling in our heart, like it's going too fast, like it's going too weak. It was a horrible, horrible feeling, one that I don't want to repeat. And at this tighter, higher dose, I felt like there was heaviness on my chest, like it was stopping me from breathing, like affecting the way I was breathing. But I mean, overall it was slightly better experience than a worse experience. It's just that the physical side effects and the bloody repetitiveness and looping thoughts, to me, in higher doses can be worth it if you've really got nothing else to do or no other substance per se. But personally, I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather have a different substance. It's not a substance I would personally do all the time. I have done a lot of, but it's not something I'd want to really repeat that much anymore. Now, the pros of it were, it gives you a fuck ton of energy, it puts you in a pretty good mood in some respects, but it's a little bit, it could be any mood. You do get visuals with it at a much higher dose. Not profound visuals, but some. And it puts you in a silly mood as well as a fun mood. It makes you think silly things. So it's nice in that way. The cons are, though, just the terrible physical side effects. Like, the way it makes your throat feel on higher doses is odd. Or for me, anyway. The weirdness in the heart, the speeding up and the weak feeling. Lower doses is bearable, but higher doses is really, really grating. And the looping thoughts on both lower and higher doses, it's just annoying. It's not unbearable, it's just annoying. So for me, overall, it's not really worth using. It was fun to try a few times as a novel compound, though. I'm glad to have tried it. It was fun in general, but not worth it when there are other things out there that are available, and not really worth it in general. There are a couple of things that concern me with this chemical, and that is, as I said with the heart, I don't know what that's actually doing to you. That concerns me. But another concern I have is that a lot of people are or were buying tabs of this stuff and selling it as LSD. That might seem great to you. I mean, people are tripping, so they think it's acid, they haven't taken it before, and you make a lot of money because it's cheap. But to me, considering a lot of people have overdosed on it, and it's such a strong, odd chemical that we don't know anything about, it seems dangerous. And to be honest, if I was sold 2 tabs of what I was, or 3 tabs of what I was told to be banging acid, and I took that shit, I would be pissed off at you. I would come after you and say, where the fuck is my acid? This isn't acid, you motherfucker. Tell me who the fuck you are. So for me, I don't like that people are selling it as acid. It's dangerous, it's not what it is, and it's just annoying to be duped with a substance like NBOME. For me, it's not a substitute for LSD. But as I said, It was fun, I enjoyed having the novel compound, but it's not something I highly recommend. Anyway, that concludes my report. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.